Hello, my friends, and welcome to this episode of Soulpreneur Scaling Stories. I am so excited today because we have Meaghan Dunham here, who is an intuitive business coach and energetics educator. Hello, Meaghan, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. I hope you are as well.
Oh, yes. Doing very well today. So, I want to dig right into things, but let's do a proper introduction. So, tell us a little bit about what you do in your business, who you help, and how you do it.
Long story short, I consider myself to be a business coach. So I support women who are working in the spiritual, holistic, and creative spaces, who are looking to move into the next phase of their business. They're usually at some sort of plateau, and they come to me for one-to-one coaching to move them from that plateau and start walking back up the mountain again. I do one-to-one coaching. Obviously, I've been doing that since I started my business. But one of the newer things that I started doing recently that I'm really excited about is energetics education, which is teaching the women that I work with how to use things like astrology and Ayurveda and yoga philosophy to support them in realizing their business goals. I find that a lot of what I have learned through the years of kind of discovering these modalities is that it is an experience that cultivates a lot of emotional intelligence skills like self-awareness. And those are the types of things that we need as business owners to get us to the next level. So it just kind of felt natural that I kind of brought the business coaching and the energetics together. And yeah, it's been a really fun and exciting and tumultuous journey. But I do feel like, you know, the work that I do and the people that I work with, it's really making like a huge impact, and lots of really fun things are happening.
Yeah, totally, for sure. And let's talk about yoga philosophy for a moment, because I was, as everybody else, I was also a certified yoga teacher. And when I went through the program, it was really heavily focused on yoga philosophy. And this was 2018. And I still carry a lot of that with me today. And it really changed my life in a lot of ways. So I'm curious what you bring in from that philosophy. Like, if you can give us a couple of examples, that would be really cool.
So, yoga, as most people have gone through training know, yoga is more than just the movement, right? That's what we call asana, and that's just one piece of it. What really stuck with me were the first two limbs of yoga, is what we call them, which are the yamas and the niyamas. How we treat other people and then how we treat ourselves. So I started really kind of reflecting on those particular principles and how they could support business owners. And I actually did an email series at the beginning of this year about that specific topic, because I found that things like, for instance, let's say ahimsa, which means non-harming, could be translated really easily into the work that we do as entrepreneurs, both in the ways that we interact with people like clients that we're working with, by, let's say, creating very transparent contracts with people, right? That's an example of ahimsa. But also taking care of ourselves as well, and not harming our physical bodies, our mental bodies, our emotional bodies in the pursuit of creating our businesses. So yeah, that's just an example of
Yeah,
what I have used yoga philosophy to, kind of into how I've integrated it into the work that I do.
that's so neat. I love that perspective and that take on it. And when you were saying ahimsa, the first thing that came to my mind was ethical marketing and things like this, because there's so much out there that's not. And so I was like, oh yeah, 100%. And it's really neat to view it in that lens and to
Mhm.
kind of incorporate all of that together. Very cool. And then how about, if we take the next one, how about Ayurveda? So how do you integrate Ayurveda into your business coaching?
So, a lot of people don't know about Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a 5,000-year-old science of living that comes from India, the same place that yoga comes from, or the yoga that most of us practice. It's a sister science of yoga. And it's all about aligning our bodies with nature and the world around us and making sure that the elements that are inside of our body are not being agitated or overcompensating during different seasons of our life and also during the different seasons that are shifting and happening around us in the world. So one of the things that I use Ayurveda for specifically in business is something that I have coined called Ayurvedic time blocking. So there
Go
are
into this more. Okay. Ayurvedic time blocking. I'm intrigued. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are particular times of the day that are associated with the three main doshas of Ayurveda. We have the Kapha dosha, which is, if we think about the elements, it's earth and water. And when earth and water come together, we think about mud, right? So it's very grounding and slow energy. And then we have a time of day that's associated with Pitta, which is water and fire. It's more outward moving, very fast, and very directional. And then finally, the third dosha is called Vata, and Vata is air and space, or sometimes people call it ether. And that is creative and playful and flexible and moving around quite often. And so I go into these specific times of day, and I'm actually looking at my computer because I have on my background, I have my daily routine, and I've listed, okay, coffee time is from 6 to 10 a.m., pitta time. I go down the list and I actually align the tasks that I do according to the Ayurvedic dosha and which energy is more present at which time of day.
Very neat. So let me ask you, dive into this for a moment, because everybody's different energetically. So are people's time of day for each of the doshas unique, or this is, because this is based on an ancient philosophy, these times are pretty standard? Like in terms of, let's say, like 4 a.m. is like the time that you go meditate, it's a very auspicious time, that type of situation.
Mm-hmm. So the times are universal.
Okay.
So kapha time is always from 6 to 10 in the morning, and then 6 to 10 in the evening. Pitta time is always from 10 to 2, and then vata time is always from 2 to 6. However, you then can go a layer deeper and understand your own dosha, right? We each have a combination of these elements inside of us. And from that perspective, you can create a routine that works for you. So as an example, I am a primary pitta dosha. So I have a lot of fire and water inside of my body. So for me, I don't necessarily have to leverage the strength and power and focus of pitta time because I already have it inside of me. So I wouldn't necessarily need to use that time as intentionally as someone who is maybe more of a kapha dosha, because they're more grounded and more slow. So yeah, just things like that.
Yeah, really neat. And and the last one I saved the best for last is the astrological part of the energetics. So if you could give us an overview of that, that would be amazing.
So there are a lot of people who infuse astrology into business. There are people who basically do this as, their entire living. And so I feel like there are a lot more resources for this particular modality than the other two. But what I like to do with astrology is I like to come at it from a holistic perspective. So before I start my one-to-one coaching container, I always do an astrology reading for my clients to have an understanding of what their chart is. I use Western astrology. I use the tropical system. And we do a very detailed analysis of their particular birth chart. And from there, I can see what their natural strengths are and where there may be vulnerabilities for them particularly. And it not only gives me really great insight as a coach into how to work with them and how to best support and communicate with them, but I think it also gives them permission to experiment and to be more open-minded about not only, where their strengths are and how they could leverage those, but also to be a little bit softer with themselves when it comes to their vulnerabilities.
Yeah. And the other thing that I want to highlight from everything you're describing here that I think is really cool is that you took all these things that you love I imagine that you love in your personal life and infuse them into your business, not just for you, but infuse them into your offers and really build your business around this and things that people may not necessarily associate right away with business. So I really love that. And I think it's really important to highlight this because you literally can make your business what you love, right? And the things that you want it to be so that you're obsessed with it, so that you're so excited to do it every day. And it really is also something that makes you stand out. It makes you unique. And you then get to show up as your best, highest self in your business every day. So given that, I'm curious if this was something that just sort of came naturally to you, how you figured what the story was in terms of how you're like, oh, like I'm, business coaching, I'm doing these things. And then let me add in these layers and kind of how that came together.
That's a good question. So when I first started my business in December of 2020, I was strictly a marketing coach. I had just come off of working a 9-to-5 at a startup in the marketing department. And I also have a master's degree in education. So I kind of fused those two things together and thought, oh, I'm going to do marketing coaching. I saw that there was a need for that, particularly here in my community. And I did that for the better part of about a year and a half, and realized that although I was really good at it, and although my business was very successful financially, it was not feeding my purpose. It was
So
not
important.
feeding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so important because there's so many times, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to pause you
Go
there,
ahead.
just because to make this point, because this is what I see over and over again, that there are so many people with a quote unquote successful business, but there's like either they're bored or especially with service providers, or they feel like they can't do something out of the box. They can't do something extraordinary or make it like, oh, like I have a successful business. I should be grateful for this. This is what I wanted. And now this is what I do, I guess, So continue on with your story because I really just wanted to highlight that as something to really be aware of, for the listeners to say, where are you in your business and do you love it? And then if not, you have the permission. You are able to change it and make it into something that you love. So go on with your story and how you did that.
Yeah, so I think that it really took something pretty dramatic for me to begin to make that shift into doing something that I really loved and to infusing that. I knew that I loved the coaching aspect of working with these people one-to-one, particularly. But I also just felt like there was something missing. And so, unfortunately, in December of 2022, I was hospitalized twice on Christmas Eve for complications from COVID.
So
And
sorry to hear that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was tough, but I think it was ultimately the push that I needed to take a step back and to reflect on what I was doing to myself that had gotten me to that point.
So in terms of going, pushing yourself, running your business, these types of things, wearing yourself out essentially. Okay.
Yes. And I can't remember the quote, but there's a quote that I read somewhere that says something, like if you're just keeping busy but you don't have any purpose, then you're going to burn out. But if your purpose is driving you, then you'll have a lot more energy to accomplish things. And I think that is what I realized, is that I was not putting my best foot forward. I didn't have as much energy to do the things that I needed to do in my business because I felt like, honestly, I kind of felt like I was back in a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
It was,
And this happens.
it was tough.
Yeah, this happens, right? And because we grow and we evolve also as people, so naturally our businesses should grow and evolve. And it's interesting because I feel like there's a lot of resistance out there to that thought, to that concept, especially when you're successful, when you're making money, right? So you were able to take a step back and think about it. And is that when did it come to you naturally, or just kind of it was an evolution in terms of picking these three modalities and kind of changing up what you were doing?
So I knew that people were responsive to astrology, and that's where I began because I was getting a lot of people constantly. I did a training, a couple of trainings in 2018, 2019. And, just kind of like in my inner circle of friends and that sort of thing, I was doing astrology readings and I was giving people information. And then soon people were asking me questions all the time. I kind of was like the go-to person to ask those types of questions to. And I thought, well, the people that I'm working with already are in this space of being open to astrology. So why not just try to kind of infuse it into the work that I'm doing? So the first thing that I did last year around my birthday was that I actually started offering astrology readings as a paid service in my business. And I think I booked 22 astrology readings in 3 months.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was the validation that I needed,
Right.
that, yes, okay, people are looking for this. They want
Right.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And
And this
so I
was
started
separate
there.
from marketing coaching. This was
Yes.
just straight up. That's so interesting. Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, so I started there, and some of the astrology readings were, very personal, but then a lot of probably about half of the readings, I was doing a lot of business stuff as well, because the people who were coming to me were entrepreneurs. They were already in my community. And so I was just kind of saying like, oh, well, let's look at this placement and see how that can show you where you're supposed to be going. I remember I worked with a woman who was in the medical profession, and I was able to see all of the parts in her astrology chart that were pointing her toward working in that particular profession. And she felt so validated afterward. And that just really, lit a spark underneath me. And I don't remember exactly what the impetus was for it, but I decided that I was going to start teaching master classes. So that was kind of my second step, because I also knew, just from my previous years, that although I was very successful in doing one-to-one work, I had scaled it to its max. And I needed to start diversifying, because otherwise my business was only going to be making so much and doing so much, and I needed to do more. So I thought, okay, the astrology readings go first. That's great. Now let's do these master classes. And so I did quarterly master classes last year on a lot of different topics. They were all business related, but they were infusing astrology, Ayurveda, human design, yoga philosophy. And that's where I really started to get the confidence and even the clarity to be able to bring all of these things into my one-to-one coaching.
Very beautiful. The other thing I want to pull from this discussion is that it's also a journey. So it's not that you one day were, I'm a marketing coach, and the next day you woke up and had this full-fledged framework, infusing these three modalities, and it was a seamless journey. It was a journey. So I think this is also really important for people to hear that, and this is common, right? So especially when we're like, ooh, it's a lot of playing around, it's a lot of experimenting, it's a lot of being open to that and seeing what happens and shifting as you go, and then landing on this thing that is really lovely, and who knows what will happen with it in the future, So it's like trusting yourself and your intuition and all of these things to go on this journey, and know that you can change, you can evolve, you can bring your audience with you. People are still they're going to be interested in this. You don't have to be stuck in doing what you're doing just because you've been doing it for X amount of time. And then you also said, you brought up a lovely segue into confidence. So building up your confidence. And before we started recording, this was something you had told me you were really excited to speak about, is this aspect of when you're stuck in your business, what do you do, like in terms of confidence to get you to the next step? So can you speak about that a little bit?
So what I have found is that the reason why a lot of people lack confidence is because they don't know what step to take next. They feel like they have to have a perfect plan before they take the first step. And I find that a lot with women, particularly, which is, I would say, like 99% of the people that I work with. And so one of the things that I like to do, especially, and this is so fun for me, particularly because I can see it in my own personal astrology chart, is that I like to shake things up for people. So I ask them, okay, what are you currently doing, right? And we kind of brainstorm and we write down all the things that they're currently doing. And then I ask them to do something completely different.
Publicly.
Something that's way outside their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for instance, I have a client who felt like she needed to show up on Instagram, right? But she felt blocked every single time she thought about posting to Instagram. So I said to her, I kind of asked her, like, what are your blocks? Why do you feel like you're kind of feeling frustrated every time you try to like log in? And we came to the conclusion that she really needed to be focusing more of her efforts on stories rather than on her feed posts, because she felt more confident in being able to show up authentically and just spontaneously in her stories. So we created a 9-feed static grid, and she was then able to feel that release of pressure about having to create this content for her feed posts every, 2 to 3 days or whatever. And then she could just focus on the place where she felt lit up and the place where she knew that people were interacting with her. And it was something that she had never thought about, right? But that was a strategy that other people, like, it's a common strategy. And typically it's just that they're so focused on that one task that they're not able to see the other options that are available to them, even if it's something that is like a very common thing.
No, for sure. And I wouldn't even underplay this, because I think this is the magic of coaching, of getting somebody else, of having somebody else there to reflect back to you, what's going on, and somebody else who's able to see the bigger picture and able to pull out those blocks, because this happens, with my clients as well, and me with my coach, and I'm sure you had the same experience, right? You're like, well, that was silly. Like, obviously, after you do it, obviously that was the path. But when you're in it and you're so hyper focused that you get totally stuck, and it's hard to do these things for yourself. And this really is the magic of having somebody see you and really see you and help you to see beyond this fishbowl that you are in. And also, I love the fact that you were able to take somebody who was stuck in, like, this is what I have to do, this is what they tell me, and you're like, well, no, there's another way. And this way feels more aligned with what you want to do. So in essence, you're going to be more you're going to grow the confidence, right? Because you're going to show up and do the thing that makes you happy. And then maybe in 6 months from now, in a year from now, maybe you'll want to post on your feed, maybe it'll change. And I think that that's really, really beautiful as well, and so important when somebody is kind of treading water, and just kind of spinning around in circles. And what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So it sounds like baby steps is really a big deal, because it really opens up everything and changes everything.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of times for me, what I notice with my clients is that they're just looking for someone to give them permission to do things differently.
Yes. Right. Because there's so much out there of the, well, this is the strategy that's going to work, and this is the magical thing, and this is what I did, so it's going to work for you too, right? There's a lot of that out there. And when you actually dig into it and see, it's every single strategy, has this message behind it. There are people like this for everything. So the key here is that it's a strategy for you. Every strategy works. But it's the one where you can shine, the one where you feel most aligned, the one that you can commit to and be confident in is the one that's going to work for you.
And I think that's why understanding a person's astrology chart is so impactful, right? So with this particular client, she has a lot of Gemini energy, and Gemini is a very fluid and flexible energy. It likes to do things differently from moment to moment, and it likes to have permission to change and try new things. And that's why I think it worked for her, because she needed to do things a little bit differently. She needed to be more spontaneous. And this strategy gave her permission to do that.
I love that. That's so cool. Very, very cool. Can you give an example? So the other thing that we chatted about was the power of slowing down and the power of reflection. So when somebody, so I want to have you speak to it first. I'm like, wait, I can get on my, my soapbox about this, but no, I will hold back. So when somebody is stuck, what is the power of slowing down?
So this is where I liken things to Ayurveda. There is a cycle in Ayurveda of ideation, implementation, and then introspection, right? But what often happens with people, particularly in today's society, is that there's ideation, implementation, but then there's no gap. And that's why people get burnt out. That's why people get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think there is so much frustration. So I think it is really important to rewire the way that we look at creating something in our business so that we save space for ourselves. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at the end of the process, right? But I think that typically that's when it makes the most sense to reflect on what has happened so that we can give ourselves the space and the time and the just ability to make room for new growth. It's kind of like if you think about after a harvest, right, of like a plant, for instance, let's say corn. There's a lot of stuff that's still left in the field that farmers have to go through and they have to like dig up, right? And then they have to prepare the soil again. And there's this period of rest that happens where nothing is being planted and it's just quote unquote barren soil. But what's happening is that there's this regeneration process that's being allowed to naturally occur in order for growth to be primed and ready to begin again.
So this I'm 100% on board with. And I'm asking the question from the viewpoint of somebody who I feel like this could trigger a lot of anxiety in somebody, right? Who says, well, but then I'm not making money. I'm not doing anything. I'm not, and I can see the cycle happening. And so what would you say to that?
That's a really good question. Obviously, I want to speak to the fact that, right, money is a wound for a lot of people. And I don't even know if I want to use that word. Money can be a sore subject for a lot of us because, yes, we have to make it, right? There are no other options. In order to survive, we have to make X, Y, Z. That's just how our society works. And so I never want to tell someone to take a break and not bring any income into your business. That, that's irresponsible. But I do think that what we can do is we can layer, right? So and that's why we talk about diversification and having multiple streams of income in our business. So let's say you bring on a one-to-one client and you have gone through the 3 months with them and you're finished. And then perhaps you have a masterclass that's happening around the same time. You could have the implementation and the introspection of 2 different layers of your business happening at the same time so that you are still bringing in income. You are still supporting yourself financially, but you are also still making space for reflection.
Yeah. So it's really a strategic space. So you're going into this not like, okay, like there's a plan. So it's a really kind
Correct.
of a strategic slowing down and reflection period where you can do this while you're feeling safe, and you can do it and still feel supported and all of these things, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, so I'm going to answer my own question, is that you were speaking to burnout before. And I don't know if you've gone through this, but I have gone through this, and it was a long recovery process. So it was a long recovery process in which my income significantly decreased because I literally couldn't do it anymore. So if I had a space, or I created a space of slowing down, of reflecting, of these things, if I had done that, then I wouldn't have gone through the burnout perhaps. And then I would have been more financially secure overall, right? So it is a preventative measure. It's a self-care measure that you need to do in order to really take care of yourself, to have your business be sustainable. Because you can't just go, 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 go. Like, you literally cannot do this all of the time. It is not possible.
Yeah. I think that our society is very reactive.
Yeah.
And I talk about this with the people that I work with, especially in holistic medicine, that there is a real focus on pinpointing the problem and not doing anything until the problem has already arisen, rather than taking the time and energy to be aware of the warning signs.
I'm laughing because I'm a former healthcare provider. So I was a nurse and I worked in clinical trials research. And the thing that was so unaligned for me, that was so, like, not the reason I left, but a big reason why I do what I do now, is that I was working liver diseases, and the medication in clinical trials research, and the medication I was testing was for something to help treat fatty liver, which you get as a comorbidity of symptoms along with high blood pressure and high cholesterol and diabetes and all of these things, 90% of the time from being overweight, right? So instead of our society focusing on preventing this, and, we're focused on developing another medication for it, right? So this is the parallel as to what you're talking about as well. And so I'm like, yes, like please, like let's, and the same thing in business, no? So instead of working ourselves to death and then burning out and doing all of these things, at the beginning, let's build in a plan to protect ourselves and to hold ourselves and keep ourselves healthy and just take care of ourselves so we can continue to do this.
And I think that is a really important part of entrepreneurship as well, as financial literacy. I think that it is important to be thinking long term, because we know as entrepreneurs that we are going to have volatility in our income from month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. It's important to pay attention to those patterns that are happening. And this is something that I also do with my clients as well. Like, we kind of take a look at the back end of what are they bringing in? When are they bringing it in? Are there seasonal patterns that are happening? Can we pay attention to your profit and loss so that you are not, spending so much money on things that are unnecessary in your business? It's all about being a strategic long-term thinker. I think that is where we can sometimes, myself included at the beginning of my business, make mistakes, is thinking that things are always going to be exactly as they are in this moment, when in fact, that's just never going to be the case.
That is true. And along those same lines, right? So planning, and so that way, if there is a month where something happens or you need to take off, or there's, whatever, that, right, you are prepared. And in this way, it's another thing just to reduce the anxiety and to increase the balance of your nervous system and just to feel safe and protected while you're on this journey of having a business. So amazing point. So do you have for somebody who is pivoting and changing and growing and scaling, what is your top tip or this top thing that you would like to leave everybody with today?
So I was thinking about this question, and one of the things that I think is important is to do a risk assessment for yourself before you decide to make a decision. And not to say that you shouldn't take a risk, right? Of course, we have to as entrepreneurs. It's important to take risks, to learn where your comfort zone is, and to grow and to stretch yourself. But I think it's also important to check in with yourself and ask, are these decisions that I'm making honoring my energy? Are they intentional? Are they, is this going to, push me past my limit? And to just like have a really honest conversation with yourself about that.
And it's kind of like shifting from reactive to proactive and intentionality. And just, again, it's along these lines of taking a pause and not just saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and just kind of like going off and not really being conscious of what you're doing. So I think that's lovely and a very important tip for everybody.
One of my last year when I was working with a coach, she and I came up with a decision tree that I created that I use for any large decision that I'm going to be making in my business. And I would love to read those questions because I think that maybe they would be helpful. I have it on a sticky note here. So the first question is, by making this decision, am I abandoning myself?
Ooh, that's a good one.
The second question is this an intentional and equitable agreement? And the third question is, when I think about this commitment, does my energy feel scattered or focused?
Such important and deep questions on your decision tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I came up with this decision tree, and then we kind of talked through what the answers might be and ranking the answers, because sometimes the answer might be no, but if there's only one no, but two yeses, what does that mean? And I can tell you that I have it right here, right above my computer, has helped me make decisions that do feel like growth opportunities, but don't push me past my limit.
Love it. Love all of that. So thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. Will you please let everybody know how we can stay in touch with you, and if there's anything else, any free gifts or anything else like that you would like to share?
Sure. So I am very active on Instagram and Threads on social media. So if you'd like to connect with me at Meaghan.m.Dunham, I'm sure they'll be in the show notes because my name is kind of hard to spell.
Yes, there will be in the show notes. Meaghan, this is a name that has 17 different spellings and you never know, right, which one it is. So yes, go to the show notes. You can connect with Meaghan.
And sometimes people will ask me, is it Meaghan? The funniest one I ever got was Meaghan.
Oh,
no.
Oh, that's an interesting one. You should go by that from now on, just to confuse everybody.
So those are my social media platforms. I'm super active there. Please, give me a follow, drop into my DMs. I'm actually really loving Threads recently. So if you're a Threads lover, then yeah.
If you're not, I recommend it. Don't you feel like it's such at least right now before Meta ruins it, I don't know, but it's such an amazing community. And everybody asks questions, and like people are so open there, and they're not being just like, oh, look at all the amazing things I'm doing. They're sharing and asking questions, and people are helping each other. It's a really amazing environment. I really love it over there. Go on. Yeah.
Oh, it's very supportive. It's very like Age of Aquarius, which, we can talk more about with astrology, but it's like, yeah, everybody is in community and supporting each other. And I just love it. Mm-hmm. And then, my website is meaghanmdunham.com. And I am actually going to share with you a specific link, but I am opening a membership community. We're having our first meeting on June 3rd. But then, of course, we'll have lots of meetings after that. And for any listeners, I would love to offer a free month subscription to that community. It's the Intuitive Entrepreneur Collective.
Oh, amazing. What do you do in the community?
So it is a collective of women in business who are focused on a more intentional and slow way of doing business that really, keeps in mind our energy levels and our nervous systems, but then is also supportive of our goals. And it's just like a really beautiful place for us to come together and learn about these energetic modalities and how they can support us in building the business of our dreams.
Oh my God, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I love this conversation. And you guys go check out all of the things that Meaghan has. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.